Welcome back to Your 1230, the only podcast where our guests tell their story with the help of 12 questions in just 30 minutes. I'm your host, Mike Salitro, and tonight we are thrilled to be joined by Jeff Seckendorf. Jeff began his career as a photographer and filmmaker, first as a stills photographer for UPI and other national publications, then as a director slash cameraman, producing, directing, and or photographing over 1,000 TV commercials, dozens of music videos, movies, and documentaries. In 2008, Jeff eased out of the film industry and founded Unified Team Diving, a global scuba training and certification agency. While traveling the world training scuba instructors, Jeff authored 8 training manuals and dozens of online courses. Jeff also teaches a Train the Trainer corporate leadership course. In 2022, Jeff became the director of operations for the Parkinson's Association of San Diego. As a master's athlete, Jeff races a bicycle on track and has stood on the podium multiple times at the California State Championships. He holds the hour record in his age group at the San Diego Velodrome and is a course record holder at the World 6-Hour Time Trial Championships. Jeff's current project on the bike is an attempt to break the U.S. hour record in the 70 to 74 age group. This entails riding his bike over 44 kilometers in 1 hour in a velodrome of his choosing. Jeff, welcome. We are really excited to be speaking with you.
Thanks, Mike. Appreciate it.
Of course. And I struggled to get through the bio and only read about half of it because there's so much there and so many great things. But I want to start there at the end. Why does someone want to ride a bike indoors in a circle that many times? How did you get started doing that?
Yeah, it's funny about that because, I found the velodrome. I found the track on a bike about 10 years ago when I was getting ready to get out of triathlons because I was pretty happy to be not injured and didn't want to run anymore. And, the track just really appeals to me, right? It's meditative. It's introspective in a lot of ways. When you're on the bike, you've got one gear, no brakes. Sometimes you're alone, sometimes with lots of people, but I think it's just the purest form of cycling. And then as I was looking for longer events on the track, because in my age group, events are 2 kilometers, 3 kilometers, sometimes longer for mass starts, but nothing really long. And my strengths lie in being able to put out, some level of power for long periods of time. That just seems the way my body works. So I thought, well, let's go try an hour record and see what happens. And then it turns out it's like the hardest thing you can do in cycling. So there you are. Why not do the hardest thing you can do?
And that's a good question. I want to get to that. The track part, I know first of all, being a triathlete, you put your body through some grueling, enduring events. So almost getting rid of the running and swimming might be a respite, but using the track as kind of a repetitive, or where you're going to be going from the start. There's no change of scenery. Was that difficult to get through from the triathlon experience, or how did you make that transition?
The track to me, as soon as I got on the track, I thought, this is it for me. I just love this. First of all, you can't get lost on the bike. If you can find the track, pretty much you can find your car because it's 200 meters away. So jokingly, that's a really cool part of it. But again, the purity of track racing and riding the track. And, I'm out there sometimes 6:30 in the morning, and it's, me and a couple of hawks, and it's silent and the weather's beautiful. And it's this incredible cycling experience compared to the chaos of the road. And I ride on the road all the time. My wife and I did, 30 or 40 miles yesterday morning, and I ride on the road probably 3 or 4 days a week. But I'm in San Diego, so a lot of it's kind of urban, and it's, the level of attention to your external world is very high riding a road bike. And your attention to your internal world is very high when you're on the track.
I love that. That is so excellently put, that being off the road, you probably have to worry about everything around you, but on the track, you're worried about getting around it as quickly as possible or doing your best. And I would think from my limited knowledge, from what I read and what we talked about originally, the hour you are just pushing yourself at. Are you going at max speed the entire hour, or how do you kind of break that out to get to your goal of the U.S. record?
Yeah, there's a pacing strategy to the hour record that's probably one of the hardest things to come up with because going full out might be I can sustain that maybe for a minute, right? If I'm
Okay.
just going full gas, everything I got, maybe a minute. So obviously you can't sustain that for an hour. So there are lots of different ways you can pace the hour. It's one of the things I'm working on now with my coach is figuring out that pacing strategy, whether you go out hard and allow yourself to fade a little bit. We're starting to test whether I can go out a tiny bit. I don't want to say easier because none of it's easier, but less hard and then build throughout it. Which is interesting scientifically. There's the ability to dissipate heat and all these other things that happen during the ride. So there's lots of different pacing strategies, but is it full gas the whole time? No. Is it as deep as I can go the whole time? Yes.
Okay. Good answer. And as I was thinking there, that seems like that would be a lot of, especially with working with a coach, a lot of trial and error, a lot of attempts that go well, things you pick up, you want to do the same or similar next time, and things like, all right, that didn't work. Is there a time you came home from the track, or you're talking to coach, talking to your wife, it's like, we tried this, it did not work, or we tried this, and this was an absolute breakthrough as far as pacing or things that are going to work for next time?
Yeah, usually the former. Um, and I think that's just, it's a question of, my challenge on the bike is mental. I came to cycling as an amateur cyclist, not a professional. So although I've been competitive my whole life in different sports, I didn't come out of like a professional cycling background. So what I'm learning more than anything now is the mental aspects of this. And I think if you ask me why I'm doing it, this is kind of getting down to the why. So can I push myself harder than I think I can? Can I go longer at an intensity level than I think I can? And the answer has to be yes. But when your body is suffering and you're pushing and you're seeing the power meter tick down, 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 you've got to make it go up, 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 up. I know physically I can make it go up, up, up. I can go harder. The question is, can I push myself mentally over that bump to get back into these things? So that's, all of 2020, what are we in, 3, and probably the first half of 24 is going to be worked really focusing on that mental part of it. And we're doing workouts that support that. What's interesting about that is that when I go that hard and when I do that level of intensity, I'm learning so much about myself. And that informs the whole rest of my life. So as I get mentally tougher on the bike, I get mentally tougher in business. As I get mentally more stable and sophisticated on the bike, I get mentally softer and better in my relationships, my marriage, my grandkids, stuff like that. So what I'm learning on the bike really informs the rest of my life. And that's, I think that's the reason to do it. And I think that's the reason for anybody to take on something that on the outset could look impossible, but with a little extra vision and insight, you can see, well, maybe it's not impossible. Maybe it's just almost impossible.
I'm going to do my best to follow up on all of that because there's so many good things that I'd like to ask questions on. The first is uh, you talk about pushing through mental barriers, getting through what we hear us us regular amateur weekend athletes think of as a second wind. When we see the top professional athletes, they get to a place where they don't think they can go, but they go further because they break through those mental barriers and they have the second wind, or they can get to more than they were the day before. How have you been able to kind of build off of what must be between triathlons, being on the bike, uh, to get through the mental hurdles that I can't do this, I don't want to do this, and then back to the why. Why am I doing this? How have you been able to kind of train yourself mentally, and then, as you mentioned at the end here, take it to other aspects of your life?
So for me, it's been about experiencing successes. Experiencing failures. We're all good at that. It's like, oh crap, I didn't go hard enough, I didn't go strong enough, I didn't go blue, black, green, whatever. It doesn't matter. But the days that I have, and you mentioned this earlier, the days I have successful experiences on the bike in a workout, I file those away. I mean, I really put those in a place in my brain where, okay, I went harder than I thought I could go for a longer period of time. I know what it feels like. Now I can do that. So let's go to the next step. So for me, it's a lot about of experiencing these very small successes, and then remembering them, utilizing them, and building off them for the next one. And again, I think that's the case in all parts of life, be it, sports or business or relationships. I don't know if there is anything else, right? Sports, business, and relationships. Do we have anything else?
That covers mostly everything. It's pretty inclusive there.
It seems to. So that's the goal, right? The goal is to take what you learn in one thing and use it in the other. Now, it works the other way too, right? What I've learned in business, I apply to sports. What I've learned in my marriage, I apply to business. It's all this jumbled up mixture of things that you draw from each one. And the idea, of course, is drawing from your strengths and then managing, I hate the word weaknesses, but managing the things that are challenging.
So quickly following up there, building off of your strength, and then I will steal your term, you kind of managing your challenges. Have you been one to discover those strengths and then use those as multipliers and focus on those? Or are you someone who identifies the challenges and looks to improve on those, and kind of in harmony with the strengths? And I guess the question is, so there's two schools of thought here: that I've got strengths, I'm going to just double down on what I'm good at and just do that, or I've identified things that I'm not, I'm going to try to get better incrementally.
Yeah, I think it's both. I think that's kind of a cop out answer, but I think it's for sure it's both because, for me, I am powered by my successes, which means I'm powered by my strengths. Which is why I'm doing the hour and I'm not chasing, a 2000-meter record or 500-meter record because, that's just not what my body is good at. Uh, so yeah, I just think honestly, it's both.
Okay. We'll accept that as an answer, whether or not it's a cop out. We will. We'll-
It is a cop out.
okay.
It is a cop out, but I don't have a good way to answer it in either A or B. It's just, it's not that cut and dry to me.
And that's okay. And that's okay. I am assuming though here to kind of switch gears a little bit that you must meet people, you tell them what you do, specifically on the bike, what your target is, what your age bracket is, and then they either look at you and they say you are crazy, or they ask you some kind of question of why are you putting yourself through this? How do you answer it? How do you show them that you're not crazy and this is just something that's a passion of yours and that this fuels you as to getting back on the bike tomorrow?
So I don't name drop often, and I'm not starstruck, but I was at an event a couple of weeks ago, and I ran into Connie Carpenter Finney, Davis Finney's wife, and Connie is an Olympic medalist on the track and on the bike, and we were just chatting for a little while because my coach we were common friends with my coach, and I said to her, I'm chasing an hour. Now, this is one of the most experienced, successful cyclists in the world, and her response to that was, "Why?" So I had to look at that really seriously and say, "Well, if you're asking why, and you've got a bunch of Olympic medals hanging on your wall, and your husband, is Davis Finney is a Tour de France cyclist, I got to look at that carefully because maybe it's just crazy. I don't know, but uh, y- you know." When I ran that by my coach, Ben Sharp, and I told him the story of that, Connie asked me why I would even want to do that. His response was something like, well, that's the only answer an informed person would ever ask. Why? Because it is this crazy event. It is this almost impossible event. So if we get down to the why, really, it's because it is one of the hardest things you can possibly do. It's just that. And for me, if I can get close to doing one of the hardest things I can possibly do, then I know I'll be better on the bike. I'll be a better husband, better grandparent, better business person, better podcaster, better cook, all of it. Because, you sort of take no prisoners. You just go all in on everything.
That's a good answer, especially how it bleeds into the other aspects of your life. That if we can conquer what we envision as too difficult or the hardest thing, then the other things become doable by comparison, or the ability to try something new doesn't become so outrageous, becomes something that we can do. So I love the way that you frame that. This might be my
There's
last.
I'll
Go
just,
ahead.
let me jump in can I
Sure.
just jump in for 1 second? There's a thing that mountain climbers say, right? That, when you ask them why they climb a mountain, their answer is, well, because it's there. And, and I had a lot of that in me on this when I started training for this hour attempt. It's just, I'll just do it because it's for me. And I slowly realized that there is a potentially much larger picture to me doing this in terms of informing what other people can do with their lives. And it's why I'm sitting here with you, right? It's why I like doing these podcasts. It's why I like doing, you know, video and social media about the ride. It's why I like coaching on the bike with other athletes and bringing people to the track and all that. This whole thing has really given me the ability to say, well, it's not just about me. It's something I'm doing, but it can also inform other people about what's happening in their life and what happens, when somebody else hears the story and thinks, well, I want to try something that's really hard too. Not so much to do the hard thing, but to see if I can do that mentally so I can be better at something else. So
I think as you
anyways, I'm
say that
sorry to
too, there's
interrupt.
no, don't worry about that. As you influence, inspire others, you are also showing up better for those around you. So that's where my mind went instantly, is that I'm doing these difficult things not only to help other people try to do the same thing. I'm a better person in all those other aspects of my life, and that has an effect as well. So I love that story, and you've convinced me, as the first time we talked, this guy's nuts too. All right, I see what he's doing. Can you take us
I
into
think
the
there's a little nuts in it because it's just hard, but everything's hard, So,
but I think that's human nature, that that's hard, I'm going to try something else, or that's hard, I need an easier way to do it, and that you're
yeah,
taking that's hard and going straight at it. That's what I love.
yeah,
Can you
yeah.
take us to the day of the event? What your routine looks like, how you prepare, how you mentally psych yourself up out to go after this? Because I think it's awesome, and I want to be there with you. Go ahead.
I don't know if it's psych up or psych out.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I can talk about the day I did the record at the San Diego Velodrome, which was about, I don't know, 2 years ago. I set that, and and it really, I have this thing about competition where I can sort of compartmentalize and just go everything else out of the way, and I kind of made it like every other training day. It's like,
Okay.
get up, have the same breakfast, have the same 93 cups of coffee, do a core activation sequence, get to the track, get on the bike, do a warm up, get everybody ready, and then just go. I tried to make nothing unusual. I mean, of course, you never want to change anything on race day because who knows what's going to happen. But I took that to an extreme. I just did nothing different. So, I was with a different coach at that time. She was here for the event. We had done a little bit of a dry run the day before. So, we knew it was going to be like getting to the track, setting everything up, getting the warm up bike, all that stuff. It was all well rehearsed. And so on the day, really, I had nothing to think about except show up and ride my bike. And we did it at like 7 o'clock in the morning. Um, so I didn't have time to actually have the rest of the day interfere with it. So business as usual. And I think in any competition for me, you just have to do business as usual. So you know exactly what to expect.
Okay. Thank you for sharing that. That's interesting. I would have thought that there would be some sort of ritualization around it, that this is the day, but it makes sense as you explain it, that I can't deviate from what I do. Otherwise it becomes too different. Okay.
Yeah,
Um,
and in training for an event like this, training's hard too, right? It's not just the race that's hard, it's the training that's hard. So I want to make sure that I'm equally well prepared for the training events to do as well as I can in those. So that routine of, breakfast, blah, 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 blah. I do the same thing on training days too. So there's no variance from that. There's no surprises. There's no overexcitement about it. It's just like go to work. My office for that day is the track.
okay. That makes total sense, as you say. Uh, you have talked a lot about tonight your why you do this, why it's important to you, how you are able to take these very difficult, both mentally and physical tasks, challenges head on and kind of persevere and keep pushing forward. That seems to inform the work that you're doing at the Institute of Purpose. What can you tell us about that?
Yeah, the Institute of Purpose, it's a total passion project. I have a friend who is a gerontologist who works with an aging population, and we were having lunch, and he told me that he had this name that he wanted to do something with, and he told me it was the Institute of Purpose, and it's like, oh my God, we have to utilize that name. This is like, first you name the band, and then you go find the drummer. That's kind of how I felt. So, so we just decided to create a website called the Institute of Purpose, and then we sort of figured out what it was. And really what it's come down to now is a place to house content of people talking about their purpose. What what makes them tick? What makes them get up in the morning? What makes you, Mike, get up in the morning, and why? And I it's a new project. There are 3 or 4 longer videos and maybe 8 or 10 or 12 little 30-second clips from people, but the thing that's interesting is what those clips say, what those videos say as a whole. So we have all these disparate people talking about what gives them purpose, and they're all the same. They're all some version of, I get up in the morning so I can help other people. And it just, as it's kind of, how sculptors always say that the sculpture is in the rock, they have to just carve all the rest of it away, but it's already in there.
Mhm.
That's kind of how I feel about the Institute of Purpose. This vision, or this collection of people talking about how they can influence other people in a good way was there. What we're doing with this project is bringing it out and letting people hear it 16, 20, 40, 50 different ways to say the same thing. And that's really what makes me the happiest about this, is that, we're not reinventing the wheel on talking about purpose. We're just giving people, you know, dozens of different ways to hear it, knowing that one of those will resonate. It'll either resonate with, the woman who's a former professional dancer, or, the guy who's basically a professional podcaster, or, somebody who's got Parkinson's disease, or whatever it is. It doesn't matter. The point is, now we can present the same story from all these different directions, knowing that it'll hit. It's almost impossible not to get hit by one of them.
That's that's a I love how it starts with, we've got a name. Now we need to figure out what we're going to do with it. Who we
That's
should,
right.
so
Are we jazz? Are we hip hop? Are we reggae? What are we?
let's get the drummer. We'll figure it out. Um,
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
but
Get the timekeeper.
you mentioned Parkinson's and working with others who have Parkinson's, and you mentioned the common thread with everybody is the willingness to help others. So kind of tying those two things together, if I can awkwardly here, how have you're the director of operations for the Parkinson's Association. How did you get involved? Why is this a cause that's important to you?
Yeah, so it's pretty straightforward. My wife is a nurse practitioner. Her whole practice is Parkinson's. So for decades, I've had a zillion friends with Parkinson's, and I came out of the film industry, as you mentioned at the beginning of this. And so it seemed like a natural thing to just help the local Parkinson's Association with some video content, some web stuff, some newsletters. And that, over the past, I don't know, 4 years, 5 years, whatever it's been, kind of has just expanded. Um, I had a room in my life for a project. They opened up a position. It looked like a really nice fit, so I just jumped on, and now I kind of run the background of this. I'm definitely not the front guy, um, but I do the content and I do the web and I do all this other stuff, and it's a wonderful experience for me to support, this community of people who are living with this, degenerative disease that doesn't ever get better, but can be managed in a way so it doesn't feel worse. So, in a lot of ways, we talk about purpose. One of the things that gives me purpose is to help this particular community. I think when you talk about purpose, it's important to say, well, look, I don't have to be the guy who affects 8 million people or 800 people. My goal in life is to affect one person in a good way, or two, or four, or something like that. So for me, although it may seem like a niche, the small Parkinson's community in San Diego, it doesn't matter because I'm making a difference inside that niche. I think it was Margaret Mead said, right? Don't never, I'm going to butcher this quote, but never think that a small group of committed people can't change the world, because indeed that's all it ever has. And so I take that to heart, right? That if you can do something that makes the lives of two people better, one people better, 12 people better, it's equally as good as making the lives of a million people better to me.
Well, that's the through line for our conversation here, because I mean, as I look up, we're somehow near time already. But you talk about having a purpose, having a why, and all of the things that you do, and the people that you surround yourself, that you attract, the willingness to help others and think nothing of it. Do it from a place that I work hard. I want to have a better outcome for those around me. I want to inspire others. I want to help others. That seems to be something that is touching every aspect of your life. You just mentioned it's natural to help. And I think we would be in a much better place as a society if that was common with everybody. And it's not. It's just very refreshing to kind of hear that, and how it touches every part of your life. Switching gears one last time here. We've talked a lot about
Yeah.
all of the things that you do, which are pretty labor intensive, pretty heavy lift, if you will. What do you do to relax? What do you do when you are not helping others, when you're not riding your bike as fast as you can?
um, I have a very full life and a very fun life and a bunch of crazy fun grandkids, and uh, you know, I just enjoy every minute of it, whatever it is. And if it's, my favorite days on the bike are rest days where I get to go ride 2 hours slow, smell the roses, enjoy being outside, go for a hike, walk the dog. It's nothing, there's nothing about this that is like, um, uh, you know, I'm going a billion miles an hour. Now I have to 100% shut down. I'm going a billion miles an hour. So now I want to slow down to like a million. And that's a good contrast for me.
Okay. So I will ask the guy who's spending 2 hours on his bike to relax. Maybe I can help you here. What can those of us driving a car, motorists, do to help you guys on the road at least feel safer? Because the more I look into this, the more I talk to bikers, it is not safe on the roads. What can we do to be uh, better partners in sharing the road and understanding what you're looking for as someone who's riding on the road? What can we do to be better?
Oh, I think that's super easy. I think we have to somehow recover the world of patience. But we are so, so busy. We're so never farther than, a foot away from our phone. We're focused on the future. We're worried about what's tomorrow. Who am I going to see? What are we going to do? It's like, just live in the moment. Just take a few minutes and enjoy what you're doing right now in this space. And, for me, it's having this cool conversation with you. When I'm done with this, I'm going to join my wife and grandson, and we're going to teach him how to make sushi. I mean, just live in the moment, do what's fun. And while we're at, that's it. you know, it's not like we're doing 28 things at once. So I think one of the reasons I'm successful on the bike is because when I'm on the bike, that's all I do is the bike. I don't ride with podcasts. I don't ride with music. I just ride with myself. And I think we need more of that as a society, less chaos, less TikTok, less social media, and more just talking, sitting, talking, and just, having a practice of patience. It's like a meditation practice, right? But
That's
that
exactly where my mind
meditation
went.
can be patience.
That's
Yeah.
exactly what I thought of
Yeah.
as you mentioned, being on the bike with no distractions. I think that's a perfect place to wrap up. Jeff, where can our listeners find you, find out more, connect if they'd like to?
Yeah. Instituteofpurpose.org. That's probably the best way to go. And, if you're interested, if you've got a story to tell, either slightly longer or a 30-second story that you'd like on the website, just shoot me a note through the contact form there. And yeah, we can do them as simply as record on Zoom, or if you're in San Diego, we can meet for coffee with a cell phone, and which I just said I never use, but here it is, but makes a great camera. And so we'll do a little purpose talk. You can share in the joy of helping other people, live their best lives and their best purpose.
Well, Jeff, this has been a pleasure and a blast. I thank you so much for joining us. We are all rooting for you, and I look forward to doing this again down the line.
Yeah, no, Mike, I really appreciate the time, and grateful to be here with you.